Today I'm showing you how to make my very favorite triple berry cake. There are so many delicious berries in season right now that you cannot avoid making a delicious cake with them. This cake has a creamy, dreamy mascarpone frosting that's not too sweet and just delicious. It's also huge. This is like a big, big cake. Okay, let's get started. Starting off by sifting the dry ingredients, and that includes 3 cups of all-purpose flour, a heaping tablespoon of baking powder, half a teaspoon of kosher salt, and there is almond flour. We're gonna do that separately. So let's sift this part out first, give that a head start on mixing up. And now for the almond flour, which has so many lumps in it, you always have to sift almond flour, FYI. Okay, now we're gonna sift our 2 cups of almond flour. I think almond flour gets lumpy because there is like natural oil in the almonds, and when you grind them up and they sit in a bag for a while, it kind of tends to lump up a bit, especially when pressure is applied, FYI. All right, now we're gonna give this a nice whisk. This cake has 3 8-inch layers, so it is a lot of batter. Use your big bowls. Setting that aside, and now for our wet stuff. So for the wet ingredients, I'm starting off with 2 cups of sour cream, and I love sour cream because it just gives you a ton of moisture. If you don't have it, you can go ahead and use regular whole milk yogurt, and that'll be totally fine. I'm gonna add 4 whole eggs in now. I'm using 2 teaspoons of vanilla bean paste, which I love because you get a really nice vanilla flavor from it and the beauty of all the little seeds mixed in. However, vanilla extract is totally fine too, don't worry. Get it all out because you don't want to waste it. All right, I'm gonna give this a whisk just to get it started. Now I'm adding in half a cup of coconut oil, which I melted so it'll mix better. I'm addicted to coconut everything, so I love the very subtle taste imparted by the coconut oil into this cake. But if you're not a fan or you can't get a hold of it, go ahead and use vegetable oil. It'll be totally fine. And now for our sweeteners. So what do we have to do? Add in 1/4 cup of maple syrup and 3/4 of a cup of honey. I just gave this a little bit of a warm up in the microwave, like for 25 seconds, so that I could mix it in more easily because the honey is very thick. Our last ingredient to add into the wet mixture is the zest of 1 lemon. I love lemon. It'll really wake up those berries and give you a beautiful aroma. Totally optional though, so if you don't like it or if you think it's gonna interfere with the other flavors, leave it out. That tastes really good. It's gonna be a good cake. Set that aside, let all the flavors work together while we prep our pans. I'm prepping my pans just by buttering them, and then I'm gonna coat them in a little bit of flour. That's all they need. If you're having problems with releasing the cake, it's probably underbaked. That's the main culprit in having cake that kind of clings to the pan and breaks. If you overbake the cake, it'll plop right out and be hard as a rock. So watch your cake carefully. All right, now I'm taking a heaping tablespoon of flour, toss it in the pan, and kick it around. I'm combining the wet and dry ingredients in my standing mixer because I'm worried that it'll spill out of my regular bowls. We'll see what happens. All right, dry ingredients into the bowl. And now our delicious wet ingredients into the bowl after we add a paddle attachment on. And now I'm gonna carefully pour in my wet ingredients and then give it a mix. Now to give it a mix on low, there will be some bowl scraping. I'm just telling you ahead of time. Some dry ingredients caught on the bottom, so let's just use our spatula and pull them up. Okay, all mixed, and now it's time to add our batter into the pans, and we're almost done. I love seeing all the specks of vanilla in this batter. Take a look, so beautiful. I transferred my batter to the pans, and now I'm gonna weigh each pan and see if they're roughly the same. If they're not, I'm gonna transfer a little batter here and there until they're mostly equal. This will make sure I have nice, even cake layers. Last step before these go into the oven is to add my cake strips on. These are really important because they cool the edge of the cake down and they let it bake more evenly. It gives me a taller layer that's fluffier on the sides and perfect. These are going into the oven at 350 for about half an hour or so, or until the centers are set. So I'll let you know in the subtitles below what the exact time was. My layers baked for 35 minutes and I let them cool in the pans for an additional 5 minutes. And now we're gonna see if they release properly. Fingers crossed. This smells like heaven. Now it's time to start the buttercream, and I'm so excited about this because it's not actually buttercream. It's a whipped mascarpone frosting. It's light as air, creamy, but not cloyingly sweet at all. So it'll really let the berries stand out and these delicate flavors in the cake as well. First off, 3 cups of cold, heavy whipping cream into my standing mixer. 3 cups. It's a lot of whipped cream, but it's a big cake. I have a cup of confectioner sugar and I'm just gonna sift it in just in case there's any lumps. When I mix, I'm gonna start off low and then increase gradually. I'm just used to doing that. I think you can do it any way you'd like, as long as it whips up. Okay, that whipping cream is nice and thick. It's not over whipped though. Delicious. Right now I'm gonna add a tablespoon of vanilla. Just a quick whip. Now I'm gonna add my mascarpone in, and this is amazing. If you haven't tried it before, mascarpone cheese is like whipped cream, but much thicker. But it tastes like whipped cream. It doesn't taste like cheese at all, so you can add it to things. It becomes silky and creamy, and in the case of the whipped cream, it'll help stabilize it so the cake doesn't collapse, because that's not gonna happen on my watch. All right, I'm adding in 2 containers of this, or about 16 ounces. Make sure the mascarpone is room temperature. That's very important. We're gonna beat this until the mascarpone is incorporated, but I wanna warn you not to overbeat it because it can become grainy, which nobody wants. Don't be afraid to mix it just a bit and then fold by hand just to finish it off and make sure it's all distributed. You really don't want to overwhip it. For the decoration, I piped on my mascarpone whipped cream, added a selection of berries throughout, and then piped on some more of that whipped cream. Add that second layer on, and you're going to repeat the process. Pipe a layer of the whipped cream on top of the cake, and then give it a nice smooth with your bench scraper. Use an offset spatula for the top if you have one. I want to see a ton of fruit poking out from this cake, so I'm pushing in a bunch of different berries and then giving it one final smooth with my bench scraper. Use a large star tip to pipe some dollops on top, and then alternate adding strawberries and blackberries for a final touch. Okay, so you have to make this cake. It's so delicious. All those ingredients work perfectly together, and I'm not just tooting my own horn. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button.